All right, everybody, I've got 2:01, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have some folks jump on here over the next couple minutes as we get a couple minutes past the hour, but I know everybody's busy. Everybody's time is important, so wanted to get this started. Obviously, we are rapidly approaching the ARPA reporting deadline for your first expenditure report. Looking at the list of names, appears that it's everybody on here is NEUs. I don't see anybody from Casper or Cheyenne. Obviously, they've already been doing some reporting, being in that metro category, but this is the first go round with getting any reports in for the NEUs. Received a decent amount of questions and kind of a increasing frequency of them over the last couple 3 weeks here. So put my head together with a couple of the board members from WAM and said, hey, do we think at least a little roundtable discussion or kind of a meeting of the minds would be a good idea. And I think we both agreed. The one difficulty that I have with this process, unfortunately, is they didn't give us a dummy portal. They didn't give us some kind of a thing where I could get in and look at it without specific municipal access to kind of learn the system. So while I've watched some of the webinars and stuff, it's not really a great replacement for some hands-on. But so I don't really have an agenda for this particular meeting. I really meant for it to be an opportunity for folks to bring the questions and issues that you're having to a group that I know that a few of the faces in here and some of the conversations I've had, at least that a few folks have crossed the finish line on this first reporting period. So I'm hoping that we can kind of help each other keep everybody moving forward over this last week and a half, 2 weeks that we've got before the reporting deadline. So with that, I guess I would kind of open it up for anybody that's got questions or concerns. Feel free to unmute yourselves and go ahead and throw that out to the group.
Justin, it's Judy. Got an easy question for you.
Okay.
When we're reporting the amount of allocation that we're going to be claiming as our allowable, do we just claim the dollar amount that we've already received or the dollar amount that we are projected to receive?
As far as for lost revenue?
Yeah.
Okay. Kathy, when we talked on that, you said that it showed both halves on yours.
Yes, Justin, that's correct. On that, when you get in there and you start working on it, it'll show you your both payments on there. So I went ahead and did my report with the total amount.
Perfect. Thank you. That was my biggest question after I went through the thing that I had been looking at an older version, and then Justin referred me to the newest version. And so once I went through that, pretty much my only real question was what dollar amount to claim. So if it's going to offer us both, we'll just take our total and hope that it's a one and done.
That was my reasoning with it also.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathy.
You bet.
And realistically, so if they say they were going to deliver the second tranche of funding exactly 12 months later, that would put us like the last week of May is basically when the state got those funds last year. Now that everybody has all their information in, all their DUNS numbers and the WOLF's codes and everything else that they needed, that was such a lift getting all of that put together. Now that they have all of that and talking with the state auditor and other folks administratively at the state, I would anticipate that you guys will probably see those funds hopefully the first week of June.
I saw someplace where they said that it was actually going to be the first week of May, which I don't recall where I saw it, but it was you will expect your second payment the first week of May.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and
who knows?
And they may have moved that up just a little bit. The initial promise was, within 12 months. So I think I think first week of June is probably at the end, would be kind of the latest that we would see it. There was some conjecture last year. We were talking about whether it would be worth trying to hold it to the absolute end of the 30 days to save, to get it all into one fiscal year as far as when it was distributed. But yeah, so you should be seeing that second tranche here very shortly anyway.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
So Justin, and Kathy knows this, so I don't know if anybody else is having this problem. I know the town of Sinclair is having the same problem, but when I go into the US Treasury, they're not recognizing they're not sharing my email address yet. So I can't even get in there to start my reporting.
Okay.
And then I had to email the US Treasury telling them that, they didn't have that information, and they've sent me back a case number, but now I'm just in waiting on them before I can even get in there to start doing my reporting.
Was that their IT email, Penny? Like their IT support?
It's the slfrp@treasury.com.
Okay, that one at least is a little more responsive. I know some folks have been referred to an email that goes to the IT support for Treasury, and that one I think unfortunately is really snowed under. So I haven't heard of anybody getting a timely response back from them. But the regular portal email, they've at least gotten back to people. I would assume at this point, being this close to the deadline, there's probably a pretty large number of emails that they're trying to keep up with right about now. So yeah, just keep checking back on that. They do have that number. There is an 800 number that's available too. But a lot of times it's not necessary. If you can get through to it, there's not necessarily tons they can do for you over the phone, but let me know if there's any help I can be, trying to work from the other side of that. Unfortunately, I've got a feeling I sort of feared there was going to be a big logjam on these coming into the second half of April. Just the amount of folks that would be trying to figure this portal out at once was going to be tough. So
Yeah, so it's a matter for me just waiting for a response back from them so that I can actually get in there to do my reporting. So
did you assign roles to anybody else, Penny?
I don't remember doing that, but
Okay.
I could try it.
I'm just wondering if you had assigned them to anybody else, at least you could get in there and kind of get your report ready. And do those sorts of things, so that then if you're specifically assigned as the reporter, you'd at least have all the rest of it put together.
Yeah, I'll double check through my paperwork, but I think I'm the one that's the reporter for it. So, and see what I can find out. What was you going to say, Kathy?
We've had that trouble with a couple other communities, and they just went ahead and did the ID me, and then they were able to jump in and get it complete. So I guess if you don't have, you've been waiting a week or two,
Yeah.
I guess if you don't hear something, and if you're not too adverse to doing that, you might have to try going through ID me.
Okay, well, I'm partially through ID me, and then it wasn't taking my picture. It wouldn't accept my picture, so I kind of stopped. So I could probably go in there and finish that out. So if I don't hear anything by the end of the week, I will get that done so I can get in there. Now, we're doing the ID me. Don't I have to wait for them to respond to me also?
Yeah, but it doesn't take very long.
Okay.
The other communities, they were in that same day.
Oh,
So
okay. That sounds great. I'll do that.
I don't know, Justin, if anyone on the line has had success submitting their information, but if they were concerned that what they submitted was wrong, there is a button where they can unsubmit it, fix it, and go back in. So if anyone has that question, I can help them with that too.
So this is Andrea over in Rock River, and I guess I'm way behind the curve, but I thought we had done ID me, and when I get to the designation form, there are no roles to designate. So I'm like at the beginning and at a loss. And it's been, I'm sorry, the exasperating process, like unlike any other. I click on the help links from the Treasury website because I get all your emails. Every link I click on seems to take me back to the exact same help screen in the same, location. I'm really struggling with the Department of Treasury and trying to decipher how to go about doing this. It's been a huge struggle for me, and I feel like I'm kind of an idiot.
No, Andrea, please don't say that. You're not alone. We've all felt like an idiot through this process. So, the mounds and mounds of paperwork and webinars to read through. I mean, it is a lot to swallow. So please don't feel bad about that. And we can either go offline, or now you've gotten through to the site and you're trying to set up your designated people. Is
Correct.
That's where you're at? Okay.
And, so when you pull up that screen to designate, there's the program roles. There's 3 options that you should be able to assign to somebody.
Right.
On mine, I have no options.
Oh,
And when I went to the little webinar or thing that they had from the Department of Treasury, they go over the procedure on how to do that. And it's hilarious because if you look down in the comments under the YouTube, there's like 15 people who are like, hey, I don't have anything to assign. I don't have anything to assign. I don't have anything to assign, and nobody responds.
right.
So yeah,
Andrea, where are you from again?
I'm in Rock River.
So how about after this, I'll give you a call and walk you through the biggest thing about that designation in the program roles. You have to make sure you double click the arrows and that they fill in to the side. There's 2 big boxes. And
But
so
those boxes are empty.
yeah, and you'll have to make sure that you get something in that, and I'll help you with that.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great, because I've been kind of stuck right there. It's like, how do I get there to be anything populated in the boxes?
Yep, I'll help you with that.
Well, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Can I interject? This is Ashley with the Town of Sinclair. I think I've been running into the same problems. Andrea, may I ask, did you use the like a town email address, or did you use your personal email address for when you did the ID me?
My waterman already had ID me. So
Because I think it is
we are logged in
tagging
under him, and he used his personal, because it won't let you it won't do a work one. It made him create his ID me a while ago, because he's also the fire chief. So he already had an ID me.
I think the problem, because I had the same problem, is I use my personal one. Somehow it's tagging it to the town one. Somehow, whenever we created these accounts and was sending in our information, it tagged those email addresses. So if we're not using those emails, I don't think it's giving us the roles to be able to be assigned to the people, because I have the same problem as you. So I think somehow it's how the report is getting put in. It's not pulling it to your water guys ID.me for you to be able to put that in there. It's not identifying it. My login.gov is the same way. It wasn't seeing me as a person to have the report from the Treasury to be able to do it. So I see where everybody's frustration is. It's so much has to be in line for the information to pull correctly for everybody to be able to do things step by step by step.
Yeah, and I had heard that as well when we gathered all that data, working with the governor's office last year. There were 2 email addresses basically that they were looking for. It basically, whoever would be the main point of contact person, for finance. So in cities, the finance director, in cities that maybe had a designated treasurer, or of course in our smaller towns where you've got clerk treasurers, that was the email that we sent in, along with your chief, basically your chief executive, so your mayor or city manager, depending on which form of government you have. So those were the two emails that went through to the governor's office that then they filed with Treasury. So those are the emails of record. If any of your emails have changed, or you maybe changed, I know every once in a while folks change the domains, or they lose their old provider and they have to change who their email provider is. If you have any question about which one was used, shoot me a note offline. I believe I still have access to that Google Doc that I worked on with the governor's office, so I should be able to track down which two email addresses are assigned to your town.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So that would make sense. His would not have been the one you would have sent.
Right, because
Gotcha.
they specifically wanted, basically kind of the head fiscal person for each community, and then whoever the chief executive was.
Oh, I see. So, yeah. Okay. I
Which
got it.
even some of
Okay.
those may have changed, if you had an individual email for a mayor and that you don't still have that same mayor, unless they had a generic mayor at whatever town address, there could be. But the biggest thing and the main thing we were trying to do was make sure, obviously the connection with the fiscal folks is kind of the more important and urgent one.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe if I just start over with my email address.
I think that would help, because it's sort of paired up, right? So
Gotcha.
it's looking for those email addresses to register for that account.
Okay, well, that would be, I guess that's probably where I need to be starting at then. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Andrea, also, I tried to do that. You'll just have to watch it because it will see that you have tried to do an ID.me. If you used any of your documents, it will say you've already created an account. So then you can't actually create one. I ran into that problem now as well. So best of luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Sandy, I see this question in the chat. So Sandy's question, question on revenue replacement. We've haven't had any expenditures before March 31st, and we aren't decided on how we want to treat our funds for infrastructure versus revenue replacement. Do we necessarily have to state that on this round of reporting? There's no expenditures. So, and I had this question yesterday too. Everybody should be claiming revenue replacement. If anybody wants to tell me I'm wrong on this, but I think my opinion is that everybody should be claiming all of their funds as revenue replacement, just so that opens up your spending ability as well as simplifies your reporting responsibilities. When they changed that, I think that was back in January when that rules change came out. For those who maybe hadn't tracked on that, you can claim up to $10 million in loss as a standard flat. So everybody in Wyoming, save for Cheyenne, got less than 10 million. So everybody, and especially all of our NEUs, can claim the entirety of their ARPA award. They can basically claim as revenue replacement. The big advantage there is the flexibility of the money. In your comment where you were talking about sewer infrastructure, you could use these funds for basically anything, save for there's basically like 2 or 3 asterisks. You can't do a tax break with it. You can't pay off debt. You can't put it in reserves, I think. And what was the other one? You can't pay a settlement as well.
You can't put it in pension too.
Right. Yeah, you can't. So the state couldn't technically fix Fire A with it on paper, and I know I heard Auditor Racinas at the last WAMCAT event talked about, basically some of her suggestions were, and I think some of our folks talked about that at winter conference too, was the option of, say, just claiming it as payroll. you know, as a line item showing it that you applied it to your payroll. And then obviously you would have those offsetting funds elsewhere in your general fund, and you could decide how you wanted to use them. But any governmental purpose is allowable once those funds have been claimed as revenue replacement.
So this is Trudy in Evanston. If you haven't, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna claim it as revenue replacement, but we don't know what we're gonna use it on yet. Do you
Mhm.
still on the report, just report it as revenue replacement?
I believe so. You're not going to show any expenditure,
Right.
but as far as the and again, this is another one of those opportunities where I wish I had I had the opportunity to be in and watch over somebody's shoulder as they did this, so I could see how they did it. Trudy, did you get a chance to watch that first treasury video that I sent you? Along with the
I've watched so many, I think I'm confused.
well, that one they specifically made with the idea that, you know, for folks that were going to be reporting with their amounts claimed as revenue replacement.
Okay.
So that may
Yes.
be a good source for you on that.
I do
But
remember that. It was supposed to be fairly simple.
yeah, that's a big part of it too, is they realized that, you know, they want these monies to make it out into the economy. They were trying to streamline things and make things a little less thorny, you know, as far as what people could spend it on. And they saw people, I think they got the you know, the notion a lot of folks were really, you know, spending a lot of energy trying to figure out how to shoehorn these funds into the specific spending category. So this was sort of a catch-all way to loosen that up and to alleviate some of the reporting burden. So, you know, especially for our smaller communities, I think they got the message that our bandwidth is a little narrow for a really, you know, cumbersome process that's got a lot of complexity to it. Not that we don't have some complexity, obviously, but you know, as far as the intricacy of it, I think they tried to simplify that as much as possible.
Okay.
So this is Barb from Manchester, and I just watched the video for the NEU this morning, and then I went through and was like filling out the form and doing the revenue replacement. And so it was pretty basic, and it just asked for like a blurb of what you're going to use the money for, what you used it for. So that's kind of like my only question, because I didn't submit it yet. I just kind of went through the steps to see how it looked, and it really was super simplistic. So I was like, okay, maybe this is too easy. But because we had talked about it the last WAMCAT about having to do all the payroll reporting and all of that, showing that that's what we used it for. But at the way it looks now, that doesn't seem to be the case. You just put in an explanation of what you're using the lost revenue, or what was lost revenue. Am I like misreading that, or is that really how simple it is?
Barb, this is Kathy, and yes, you're spot on. It's that simple once you get to that piece. If you can get all your other little steps and you hit there, and everybody has said that. They're like, are you kidding me? It's as easy as that. And the only thing I would say to everybody is, and one of the advantages of doing payroll versus the other is, you know, they won't have to come back, and you won't have to make sure that you had Davis Bacon or American Steel made. That payroll makes a lot of sense that way. You don't have to have that documentation later. Right now, nobody asks for that, and Barb's right. But just make sure you take, like I took my 941 quarterlies that added up to the total amount of award, and then I kept that in a file just for later, and just marked the file that, you know, so that someday if they ever came back and looked. But you don't have to download anything or anything. You just have to write on there that you use those funds for payroll, and it's scary how easy it is once you get to the spot you need to. So I think you did it right, Barb.
Thank you.
This is Trudy in Evanston again. I have another question about the point of contacts. What has the other treasurers done? I did assign our mayor as an authorized representative, but he will never probably get into the site. Have you been assigning yourselves as the 3 different points of contact?
I did include the mayor with me too. I have myself in there twice and then I put him in there too, but I'm the same way. He'll never be in there.
Okay, so you put yourself as the account administrator and probably the point of contact?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And my mayor was in there as well. And then I was just in there and I couldn't do anything. So when I logged in, I gave myself all of the privileges and saved it, and then was able to do all of my submitting, my contacts and all of that. And I did the same thing for Dayton. So because
Yeah.
the mayors are not obviously going to do the reports, but that's how it was set up initially.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. You know, it's one of those things, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, you click through it and you'll get kicked out, and then you click through it and you have to, you know, you just stay diligent, just keep going through it. And if, like Barb said, if it only works with you, then just use you. And it's extremely frustrating on those front parts, but once you get to where you need to be, it goes really fast.
So can I ask a question?
Sure,
on
Brian,
that?
go ahead.
So you could theoretically have one person for all 3 roles, it sounds like.
By the rule, yeah, you can.
Could you have 2 people for each of the roles? Or will that
No.
cause problems?
Yeah, no, it's one person per role, but one person can fill more than one role.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they were trying to look, you know, with the idea of some of our smallest communities where you don't have a team of people big enough to delegate and have 3 separate roles.
Mhm. Right.
And when the state budget department came on, they gave a good explanation on that, because I think at that time Kevin Hibbard was maybe filling all 3 roles even for the state.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
All right.
I'm sure they probably delegated that out since then, but again, in the case of elected officials being in one of those, unless they're really down in the weeds with you guys on this reporting project, they may or may not ever access it. There's a couple of questions in the chat I was gonna bring up. Christy Gray's got, as we know, is strongly encourage the WAM CAT to use these funds for payroll for easy tracking. I'm asking for accounting purposes. What I'm wondering is, do you change your employees' chart of accounts from the payroll line item to a new line item reflecting the ARPA funds until the funds are depleted? Anybody got idea?
Christy, this is Kathy again. I think if it makes you feel better and you know how to track that, I think that is the way to go. Go ahead and move it over. When it said that we can use it for any kind of governmental expenses, I think we are covered by that. But just for you personally, if you want to know, where your money went and how you're tracking it, or if your community wants to know better, I think that that's a personal preference. I really don't think they're going to come look at it, as long as you've documented it and kept it somewhere later as if they did come and look. But, that journal entry and keeping your records straight, I think that has to be, whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you feel better moving it and then being able to see it in a different line item, do a journal entry, I think that that's your choice.
And then the second one from Sandy Lenz: if we use revenue replacement for a sewer project, do we have to justify all the expenses like we would have to under the sewer infrastructure category? Yes and no. The justification part of it in kind of the, drawing the vector that is specifically one of those categories doesn't apply. But as Kathy mentioned, there's a certain, you know, there's some question marks out there as to whether some of the kind of traditional federal grant expenditure rules like Davis-Bacon, like the American Source Steel rules for infrastructure, those things apply if you know, specifically said we're doing this project. Now, like you were saying, Kathy, it doesn't ask you to upload all those documents from the get-go, but I suppose there's always a possibility down the road that if they, you know, if they decided to dive headfirst into audits on these things, that maybe they could question it. But I don't know what the probability of that is, as long as it, you know, as long as you're giving a governmental purpose as, you know, your expenditure explanation. Bev, I see your question. Shoot me an email, and I'll dig into that spreadsheet and see which emails were assigned for your community.
This is Laura from the town of Opal, and I have a question that was already asked earlier in the webinar, but now I'm actually on that screen, so I need to clarify it again. So I'm doing revenue replacement, and my total cumulative obligations, I can claim both of my payments because I see them both in there. Is that what the answer was?
You know, that's what I did. Because we're expecting that second payment and they obviously think we're getting it because that's the total amount. I went ahead and used the total amount that they had in there for my report.
Okay, so that means that this will be the only report we have to file because then we're closed out and done.
I got the impression from Christy, Justin, that we might have to do this annually. Am I right? We might have to do another one, or will, by using both of these, will we be done? That is a question.
I think if you're zeroing out your amount, I mean, if you're saying that you're expending that amount, you know, within the expenditure window that this report covers, then you would be done. But I believe that was the end of March, right, Kathy?
It was March. That's when it started, was March 21st.
Well, right, but the cutoff, like it's expenditures up to a certain date.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I think that was the end of March. So, I mean, with payroll, you could always, you know, you've got your payroll for the past however many months that you could, you know, you could apply those funds to. But anything that you still have yet to decide to spend the money on would extend your reporting obligation to next year. You know, and possibly further on than that. Some of the, you know, communities that got big enough awards that are actually have, well, or say like Jackson, I know I think sub-granted some money to some nonprofits in their community, which unfortunately means they now have to track what those sub-grantees do with it as well. So, you know, that kind of obviously adds some work and will sort of extend their responsibility. That's the really nice thing on the reporting side with the payroll idea, is the fact that you can one and done it. Because once you're at zero, I don't think there's any obligation to go back into the portal and just keep filling out a zeroed out thing through the rest of the 4 years that this program's, you know, will have reporting capability. So,
And that's what I did. I just zeroed it out, and then I took my 941 quarterlies and that totaled that much or a little more, and then kept that as my record.
okay.
Kathy,
Yes.
when you did the payroll replacement, Tony and I are here kind of juggling back and forth what we were going to, because we were talking about doing sewer, but how do you continue the report once you get past selecting 6.1 as the revenue replacement? What do you do then for your payroll replacement?
And then it's like 6.1, then you scroll down, it's 6.10, the next answer. And by the next time when you get down there, let me look here. Also, there's just one little line that says, what did you do with, how'd you spend it? And you just could put, your communities used it on payroll, and that's it. You don't even download anything. You just put a one-line sentence in there.
I didn't want to interrupt her.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Because it makes more sense for us to do that because we can come up with that real fast.
Yeah, it really does.
Perfect. So 6.10, and then we used it for payroll replacement, and off we go, correct?
Yep.
I think I love you.
Well, and then two, of course, on that, Judy, then if you're still wanting to tackle that sewer project and use
We
that
have the
same-
money for the sewer project, Justin. We were just trying to find something to spend this on that we could account for.
that fit the, yeah, I got
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Because that was my suggestion too to the folks, especially if you've spent a lot of time, like working with your communities, or you've held public forums or any of those kinds of things to decide on where the community would like to spend it. Obviously, you can still take advantage of some of these simplification techniques or strategies, but still have those monies basically earmarked for, whatever it is that you've been working on, planning for, as far as that goes. So.
But doing the revenue or the payroll replacement, we can knock that all off now.
Mhm.
Whereas we have been spending slowly with the engineering work and all that kind of stuff for the sewer. So
Yeah,
I like the one and done idea really well.
yeah.
So we
Thank you.
think that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So we think that revenue replacement and payroll replacement are both equally easy.
Well, so you're claiming revenue replacement, but you're just spending it on payroll. So you could spend your revenue replacement on anything. I mean, you could pave a street, you could buy a police car, you could whatever you wanted to do with it. But by doing it with payroll, obviously that expense is always there. And it's usually one of your biggest expenses, if not your biggest expense. So it's pretty easy to get through those dollars, like Kathy's saying, in 1 quarter of, 1 quarter's worth of paperwork, and she's got all the obligations she needs to have the whole award claimed.
Okay. I wasn't that deep in it yet. I thought we could just like umbrella it revenue replacement, but I'm starting to see where I have to justify what revenue. So.
And it really is just revenue replacement all the way down. There's just one line that says, what'd you spend it on? And you can just say payroll there. So
Okay.
it really is revenue replacement all the way down.
Okay.
Yeah. And you just, like Kathy said, they just expect a 1 word or 1 sentence narrative.
Okay.
So,
This is Trudy again. I have another question now that I'm in there and looking at it too. I don't know where you put in the 6.1 for the revenue replacement to begin with. And then on my project overview, we haven't designated anything. Of course, we know it's going to be revenue replacement. So do I do that my jurisdiction has projects to report or does not have projects to report?
Yeah, skip past that part. That'll really bog you down. That project overview, just scroll past that and then hit next, and then scroll past the next one until you get to the revenue replacement one. And when you get to the revenue replacement, you kind of got to scroll down a little bit and find a line that says 6.1 and you know, it's a drop down. So you scroll down on that and then you click on the 6.1 and then you go down a little bit further and you click the next one, 6.10 or something like that. And they'll ask you that question, but they're drop downs. And when you get into the revenue replacement.
Kathy, did you want to are you on that screen?
Let's see if I can get them back there to that. Share my screen. Can you see that yet?
I can.
Okay, so let's go back up here to the top. And this is your main one. Maybe we should go to the home page of it. And then you go in here to the state, local, tribal support and click those programs. And then you're going to go to your compliance reports. And so you can see those two reports, the project expenditure report, and then your documents. And I don't know if anyone's had trouble loading those, but we can talk about that if you need to also. So then you can see that mine have been submitted. So I can go in here to this little eyeball and click it. And then it tells you, I wanted to show you this too. It says submitted at the top, but if you scroll down here on the bottom, it says unsubmit. That way, if you submit it and you decided you filled something out wrong, you can unsubmit it and then re-download or whatever you might have to do, and then resubmit it. So then if you go through here and do your recipient profile, make sure that that's correct. You scroll down there. Are you registered with SAMS? Yes. You know, who are your people? And it tells you there what their positions are. Then you hit next. And then project overview. So you just kind of make a quick, like that's our total obligations. And I made it our total expenditures. And then I use 6 as my revenue replacement. And then let's go in here and look. So here it is. 6 is the revenue replacement and 6.1 is provision for the government services. And so then it talks about your budget in here and, you know, all your information that you had to fill out there. My description was payroll. So that might be what you're, you know, maybe a little confused about.
Well, when I go into project overview, mine doesn't show any projects. So that's why I wonder if I have to select my jurisdictions has projects to report. Mine don't have that box. Because it says no projects verification is what mine says.
In project overview right here, huh?
Yes.
You don't have that.
Nope.
So when you go back up here and then go to your account, what do you see there?
There's information there. It shows me how much. It has everything there. It's gonna get stuck now, but. Yeah, I click on compliance reports and they're there and they're in a draft status.
Well.
But then when I click on them and do the project overview.
When you go to a compliance report, do you have those there?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
they say draft instead of.
right, which is cool. Then you can still work on them. I don't know, I might have to click around on those a little bit and then I could give you a call back.
Okay, I just wonder if I gotta select that I have a project to report or not. That's because that's what it's asking me.
Uh-huh. I would think so. I would think you'd have to. I hope I'm not making everybody sick. I kind of am sick watching myself. And so when you get here, you don't have anything?
Nope, it gives me a blue box, but it said no projects verification. Does your jurisdiction have projects to report as of this reporting period? And it gives me two options.
Oh, and then did you say yes?
I haven't done yet. That's what I wasn't sure about, because even though we're probably going to be using lost revenue,
Uh-huh.
we haven't decided what we're using it on yet. So do I do, my jurisdiction does not have projects to report yet?
Oh, I mean, I think that has to be up to you, but if you want to knock it out and get done with it, I'd say yes.
Okay, and then just report both of them as lost revenue and be
Yep.
done with it.
Yes,
Even though I don't, like you put in payroll. I
right.
don't know yet what it's gonna be for sure.
And we hadn't spent ours yet either. So,
So I have a feeling we're gonna spend ours on economic development, but
right. But I don't think you have to put that in there. If it's easiest for you to just, use your payroll, get your documentation, mark it off, it's legally, that's what they said we could do. So, and then you can, as far as your public goes and your people, your council, you can still use that money for that. It's just that, you're saying that you're using it on payroll, but then you'll transfer what you would have used on payroll back into your economic development. Now you can physically do that, or you don't have to do that either. It's just
Okay.
whatever makes you comfortable.
okay. And then just because I'm in here, it did let me get to that where I add a project. So I did the 6, and I see the 6.1, 6.2 is non-federal match for other federal programs.
Yeah, I don't want that one.
Okay, all right. Perfect. I think I'm getting there then. Thank you.
Good job. Yes, you are.
Anybody else have any actual portal questions? Why Kathy's got that up and running?
Yeah, I'm questioning right now on whether we've submitted the project screen that Kathy's got up right now.
Maybe you haven't got to that yet. Do you
Okay,
think?
so that's part of this process?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
You might not be to that process yet.
Okay, because see, I'm just watching this. I don't have another screen to be juggling back and forth with the
Yeah.
actual form to get.
Yeah,
Okay,
you-
so the project is going to be part of this.
right, yeah.
submission.
You might
Perfect.
not been there yet. You probably haven't got to that yet.
We haven't gotten anywhere yet,
Right.
other than being able to log into login.gov.
You'll
Yeah.
probably be like me and you'll get to that project overview and you've got to select that you have a project, then it lets you create the project.
Okay, perfect,
I think that's right.
perfect. We can wing that sucker too.
Yeah, and like if you look at the other over tabs that are here that aren't selected, so add projects is, but like add subrecipients, beneficiaries, that would be if you sub-awarded,
No.
other entities, like I say, I know there were a couple communities that, send some money down through some of their nonprofits that do community work. And then the direct payments one, they're actually some of the biggest municipalities we're going to send checks to their residents. As it is offset payments, almost like the direct payments that everybody got from the federal government last year. So stimulus payments. So.
And you can see that on this tab, when I clicked on it, it says right on there in red, please note at this time, obligation expenditures reported under expenditure category 6, revenue replacement, do not need to have a subrecipient, subawards, or expenditures separately reported. So, you know, so you just go on past all that
Yeah.
and then go to next.
Yeah.
Hey Kathy, this is Shari. I'm sorry I got here late.
Hey, Shari.
Hey, will you go to your My Accounts up on the top? Because I did all mine, but mine did not have any roles. And go to account. Mine did not have any roles in it.
You know, that one was tricky, Shari, because what happened, here, let me get to this, is these two boxes, when you fill it in, you have to make sure you double click so it moves over the roles. And if you don't, then they just come up blank again. So
Mine
that-
actually, it has nothing in it. So yours had something in it? Mine
No,
didn't have it. Mine was totally blank, just like that, even when I put names in it.
It was.
I put a ticket in, I talked to somebody, they said, oh, we're gonna have to get you to IT, but I was wondering if anybody else had that problem.
I did. It took me, this section I probably redid 4 times before I realized I had to click on this arrow and then double click and move it over here. And so it took me a while to get my roles to fill too.
Mine are not even showing up though. I mean, if you go to add somebody, do those roles come up? Or if you go into edit, does those roles come up?
Yes, yes. Did you try
I-
that yet?
I had to go and put my name in the certification. Then it let me enter a new role. Before that, I couldn't enter anything.
Yeah, my name is in the certification, but I
Okay,
just
but-
can't get that. I can't get the roles to, I have mine all entered. It won't let me submit it though, because I have no roles in there, but was wondering if anybody else had that problem.
They have, Shari. There's been a couple of them that have had trouble with that. And I did too. It took me, like I said, 3 or 4 times. And basically I just clicked until I got it.
Well, maybe I'll just keep farting around with it then.
That's what I would do. That's my advice. Fart around with it a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Since we're there already, Kathy, so my only role is Opal Town of Wyoming is the name. I don't know how I got that, but how would I go about adding a role? It doesn't quite look like your screen yet.
Let's
Just
see.
went to that account.
You're back into account, right?
Right.
What about the designation form?
So I don't have that little sidebar that you have.
You don't?
No. It just says all accounts. When I click that, all accounts, okay, there I am. And I have an
Okay.
account name, which is Opal Town, Wyoming.
Okay, so
Oh,
can you double click on that?
Yes, okay,
And then now you should have that sidebar.
I do.
Okay, good job.
So designation form, this is, oh, and I have the mayor, and this is where I would create myself.
Yep.
Perfect.
And
Okay.
yep, and those are the ones Shari was having trouble with. So
Right.
we've decided just keep clicking and farting around. But the big thing is these arrows, when you get filling, you have to double click and make sure they move over with your name.
Okay.
Okay,
And do I have to have 3 roles? You guys were talking about that earlier.
you do. You have to have
1,
those
2,
3
3.
roles.
Okay, I'll give them all to myself.
Yep, keep them all. So exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That just means if things go horribly in the ditch, Laura, that you're the only one they have to blame.
And they have all your documents from ID.me that you're taking a picture with all your stuff.
Sounds about like it goes around here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't even make a run for the border or anything. They've got your picture. They know what you look like.
I was really uncomfortable, honestly. And then I kept trying to keep my personal cell phone out of the loop, and I couldn't get my ID verified over my computer camera. So I ended up having to like use my personal email, my personal cell phone. I put in those comments that this felt very invasive. But
Yeah, some guy on his mom's couch at home's wanting my social security number. I felt totally comfortable with that.
Well, the good news is, Kathy, he was just on his lunch break from doing DoorDash, so
I know,
he's just
exactly, right?
He's just gigging. He's just gigging, Kathy. All right. I digress. Did
Anything
we-
else?
There's one more question. What are the repercussions? We can't file on time because we can't get on the site. That is a good question. I've got a feeling that, you know, given the number of folks that are having some of these technical difficulties, that hopefully, you know, there may be some understanding on that part. We can't guarantee that, obviously. We want to keep trying to get in, make sure you're reaching out to the, you know, if you get through to the SLFRF email and they direct you anywhere else or give you any further instructions, make sure you follow through on those. As Kathy, you know, as we've talked about, once you're in there, the actual amount of work to be done is pretty insignificant. You know, if you're going this lost revenue to be applied to payroll route. But the challenge for a lot of folks, unfortunately, seemingly is the getting past the door. So I would, you know, I would continue to effort on this as if that's a concrete hard fast deadline. You could, if you're having correspondence with Treasury on this and they know that, and they've opened say a tech support ticket for you, those kinds of things, you can pose that question to them. If they know that basically you're waiting on them to get into the site, you know, I would pose that question to them and see what their latitude is, or if they offer any relief on that. But that'd kind of be the spot to ask that question and sort of solicit what they might be able to do for you.
You know, the lady that I talked to this morning, she said, I'm gonna have to refer your case to IT. She goes, and I can't give you an estimated date. I said, well, what if this estimated date is after the due date? And she said, when it gets closer to the due date, she goes, we're gonna probably put an extension out there anyway.
Oh,
I said, okay, well, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it then.
yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't, you know, I mean, obviously for them and the way that they've structured this program, right? They're asking for a 1-sentence justification for where these funds are going. It's a little loose, right? So if they feel like this is going to create a humongous logjam, or is going to be, you're going to have people freaking out all over the country, then they might very well kick the can down the road. Because as you remember, this was originally supposed to happen in October. So they already extended it fairly significantly, another 6 months. So I don't think they're necessarily stressing diving straight into the books on these to look at what everybody spent these funds on. You know, I don't know as that's, and they could certainly start on that with the folks who are successfully getting it submitted. So in the conversations I've had, there's a decent chance that they could do an extension, but please don't send an email and say Justin from WAM said, because I don't know anything technically, but a good educated guess is that they might. And again, especially if you're working through like Shari, where they say, wait, we've got to refer you to IT, here's your case number, whatever, that would be the point to put in a PS and say, hey, you know, this is going to run me over the deadline. What can we do? And then maybe you can get something in writing at that point, even if they don't do a blanket extension.
Kathy, I have another question for you while you're on that screen. If you go over that first name box, put your cursor over it, I just get a red circle, like a do not enter mark on every box. I can't just figure out how to edit it.
Did you go up to the certification and put your name in? Because it did that to me until I put my name in
Oh.
that certification.
All right, maybe I did not do that. Got a sign. Okay, I got the mayor's name off, so now I'm not signing as him. Oh, lovely. I'm so thankful for this Zoom video.
All right.
I'm cooking with gas now. Thank you.
We have any other questions?
No, this has been very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and like I say, unfortunately, I'm pretty good, as Kathy says, farting around in software and figuring my way around in these types of things if I have access to it. So it's been really frustrating to have folks call with what I assumed were fairly simple technical questions, and I couldn't be the kind of help that I would like to be. So we theorized that this would hopefully be kind of the second best thing, and I think it's been pretty valuable. If nothing else, I've learned a couple things that if anybody who wasn't on here calls, I hopefully could help them through a couple of the more common hiccups from the sounds of things. So
Justin, I have the screen open and I can designate you a role and give you full access. You can file some reports. I'm totally okay with sharing.
I don't want them looking at my background check, Laura. I'm
Just
kidding.
thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, oddly enough, I had to go through basically the exact same digital strip search to be the manager of my kids' traveling soccer team. So I feel everybody's pain. It seemed a little intrusive for that too, but at least justifiable in that case. I mean, working with kids is a little bit more justifiable reason to, cough up your information. But anyway. Well, good deal. I have been recording this meeting, so I'll go ahead and get this uploaded to YouTube, and I'll send the address out. So if anybody, and I'll send it out to the same mailing list that I sent this invite out to. So if anybody says, hey, were you able to be on that? I had some questions. Just you feel free to forward that to them if they didn't already, or just remind them to look in their inbox, and they can take a look at this, and hopefully it's some help. So.
Thanks, everyone. It's been great.
You bet. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon, and we will see you all soon.